Welcome back. Welcome back. It's CT with E. That is Conscious Thinking with EddyEd. Back with another video, man. We have a video from our Duke once again, and this is gonna be a military guy talking about how he encountered, cannibalism. Now, this is interesting to me because there are people that are like that, and usually when you think about cannibalism or something in that realm, you think of crazy people, people that are like, very strange. But cannibals could look like normal people, and I don't know if I even met one. We probably have met some cannibals that we never knew about because they just seem normal. So let's hop into the video. Let's see what he's gonna share with us. I'm curious. Let's go. So special ops sniper. This guy's a special ops sniper. Okay.
Someone is just like a serial killer that's getting their like rocks off? Like, is there a way that you can track like, oh, this is a crazy person?
I mean, I think you can see it in their eyes, in their affect. I think it comes through very quickly. I think they exist out there and you can find them. But when it comes to operating, in a military environment, like that type of person you're describing has a really hard time because it is that like tight knit relationship between soldiers. How does a dyed-in-the-wool psychopath integrate with that?
That's why I found them to be mercenaries, where they're kind of on just like
on the fringe,
some like lone wolf type shit. Like,
right.
And like they kind of work within different groups and like, but it's not some type of organized military effort.
Probably the craziest one I ever heard like that. Well, I've got lots of crazy stories about crazy people, but one of the more wild ones was a guy who. He was like some sort of psychopath over there fighting in Syria. I don't think he was American. I think he was European. And he used to, when they'd find ISIS bodies that had been like torched from the bombing, he'd eat little pieces of them.
Ugh.
Yeah.
What?
And apparently one of the other guys who knew him in Syria met up with him, and he was living as a vagabond in Europe. He had a backpack, and the only possessions he had was like a bottle of whiskey and a copy of Mein Kampf. Like, there are some total whack jobs that gravitate towards wars. Absolutely. Yeah.
And who was he fighting for, supporting?
He was fighting alongside the Kurds fighting ISIS. But I mean, I'd have to get more of his backstory to tell you. I didn't know that dude personally, thank God.
That's crazy.
But I knew other people who were pretty whack. Yeah.
I mean, that is insane. Eating bodies on a battlefield is
out there.
Real psycho shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And the Kurds, I guess, for where they're at in their military effort, are kind of indiscriminate when it comes to being like, yo, you're going to help us out?
I mean, I don't know what that was like. He may have been just like way out there on a base somewhere where like nobody was paying attention, for all I know.
Oh, crazy. What other whack jobs have you met in that vein?
There was, so one of the guys who was like the interlocutor, I guess, that first introduced me to the Kurds, I had met him in Manhattan. He had approached me. He was an American. And then he disappears, and the next time he pops up on my radar, he's emailing me or whatever, and he's talking about how he's in Syria fighting with the Kurds. And I'm like, what? And so he was the person that I got him to introduce me to some of the folks over there. And that was my initial in. And I mean, this gets back to me rolling the dice in some pretty big ways that I probably shouldn't have. But I saw a way to gain access, and I used it, quite frankly. But this dude, as I got over there and started interacting with him, I mean, this dude was not right. Like, he was, again, you can see it in his eyes. He'd be able to have these incredibly intelligent, lucid conversations, but then he'd just like break down crying, falling apart all the time. He was just this dude was a total train wreck, and he was a psychopath. His emotions were just all over the freaking place. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this guy, but I mean, by the time I left, like I almost got into a fist fight with him. Because he was there was a couple women who were with me, female journalists. They were scared shitless of this guy by the end of it, because he was just such a wacko. He'd scare the other Kurds, they would start freaking out because he's freaking out. It was just, the dude was a mess. He's still out there somewhere.
Crazy. What a wild, yeah, I mean, just what a wild, like, specifically once you're into like journalism and dealing with kind of like fringe characters.
There was a time when I was out there in Syria and I hear gunfire, like somebody like target practice, right? It's like at intervals, like bang, bang, bang. Like, well, go see what's going on. And I go out there and it was sort of right on the Syrian border. It was it used to be a transit depot, and there were like these luxury apartment buildings. They were at one point before the war, where we were staying for a few days. So I went over to where this, it was like a transport depot for like, semi trucks, back in better times. And there were some people out there with homemade 50 cal rifles, sniper rifles, doing target practice, like shooting a spray painted circle on the side of a warehouse. And I just walked up there like, hey, how's it going, guys? What's up? And it was like this English speaking Kurdish guy with his hair slicked back. He had a mole on his cheek. And there's this group of like big burly guys wearing camouflage. And I went and like shook their hands, and they're all like, they just grunt. Like, it was like totally clear these dudes were like Scandinavian. They were like Swedish or Norwegian guys or something like that. It's just the way that war happened. And it was, the Kurds had a semi-organized militia. I mean, the Kurds were as far as the actors out there in Syria, they were one of the best organized, because of the traditions they come out of. But it was a war, and it was very disjointed and disorganized with all these different people doing different things. And so you would have these like little groups of like mercs just out there doing their own thing. And that's what I stumbled upon at that moment. And the guy took me aside and he's like, I'm going to have to ask you to leave now because this is a top secret mission. I'm like,
I thought I heard a helicopter. Cannibals, man. This wasn't really as deep as into cannibals as I thought. But, just to know that cannibals are out there, it's a little bit, it's strange. And I know certain parts of the world, they have them in abundance. I know there are places in Africa that are said to have cannibals, tribes in Africa that still do that. People that live kind of like off the grid and with less technology and things of that nature, like electricity. I've heard of some tribes in Africa that are like that. There's some in Mexico, South America. So they're in parts of the world, I'm glad I never encountered the one that I knew was one, because it is kind of weird. Like, somebody that eat other humans, they might be sizing you up like, how delicious do you look? Or do you not look delicious enough? Like, I don't want to know somebody's looking at me as far as tasty wise. Like, bro. And we don't even look at cows and chickens like that, or animals that we like eating. All we look at is when they're cooked. That's how we know it's going to be good. But actually, you kind of could, I don't know. But yes, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm out.